Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today I'm doing part 2 of my 1,000 subscribers Q&A video. Part 1 was running long, so I cut it in half, and this is part 2. And since I'm going to be out of town this weekend, I'm going to post this up. Today's Thursday, but I'm going to post this up for tomorrow instead of Friday Reads, and then I'll do a jumbo Friday Reads next week. All right, so I cut off the video in the middle of Kay's question about, she had a question about my library science background that I answered, and then the other part was, who were your favorite books and authors when you were a teen? Oh, this is a fun question, and really I would say this is sort of divided into two parts because, the teens covers a lot. So coming into the teens, coming in, say, the 8th grade, 13-year-oldish, I was coming off of a jag of reading some classic foundational science fiction writing. I went through this whole thing a little bit earlier, like 11 and 12, where I was reading famous science fiction works like Stranger in a Strange Land, which I'm going to reread in May. I went into a horror phase. So this is when I discovered Stephen King, and that would be on the higher end of what I was reading, because I also read just tons of things that would now appear in a Garbaga special, just all kinds of just paperback horror, anything with a cutout and something scary on the inside. I was reading it, and then the ones that went along with movies like The Omen, and I guess that's come back around too. But so I would say like 13, 14, I read a lot of horror. Then as I got into high school, it went into the classics. And this is when I got into Salinger, Fitzgerald. Jane Austen came later. That wasn't until I don't know, early 20s. Sylvia Plath I discovered. Oh, and Brave New World and 1984. That's when I first, that's not when I first got into dystopian literature, but I think maybe adult dystopian literature. And then some contemporary authors. My mom has always been a big reader, and she would pass things on to me. So that's when I started reading some books like some authors like Louise Erdrich and Ann Tyler that I still enjoy today. But I really got into the classics, and I was definitely heading on a pathway to being an English major in college at that point. So that's some of the things. Probably my favorites, if you would have asked me at the time, were Salinger, Fitzgerald, and Plath. So it wasn't very diverse. That also came later. Betty Lou, 3208, asked if I have a Goodreads account or Storygraph, and if so, could you put the link in your description? All right, I did on the last video, and I'm putting the Storygraph, except I'm not sure if I don't know if I'm doing it right, but here's the thing. I'm not on Goodreads. I am on Storygraph, but I don't do ratings and reviews. I'm just recording the journal. I'm recording everything I'm reading, and I joined it to participate in some challenges. So I'm doing the Read Goods Challenge, Reads Good, every time. That one, the Ben Reads Good Challenge, and Montana Book Company Challenge, which I kind of started late, but I really liked the prompt. So I don't review, because I have a written journal where I write my thoughts and then I talk about them on here. So I feel like I'm reviewing everything twice already, and I just didn't feel like sitting and writing them out again. So I'm kind of I don't know how helpful of a Storygraph it is, but it is there. Okay, Maria Andrea at Books and Bocadillos asks, I think I recall you mentioning being a bird watcher. What is one of your most memorable bird watching or nature basking experiences? And do you have a favorite nature writer or book about the natural world? Well, thank you for the question. And I wouldn't call myself a hobbyist bird watcher. Stephen and I are kind of more like, we just enjoy the random encounters with nature. So there are some serious birder people that come down here, because I guess there's just some unusual things to see in the bird watching community down in this area in the coastal bend. So I can't claim to be one of those. I don't have a lot of knowledge, or I'm not like, there's kind of like storm chasers and there's bird chasers, But I really do love what I just happen upon. We'll just go and stand under this Mexican olive tree in our front yard waiting to see hummingbirds. And that was one of my most memorable experiences, is a couple of different times when a ton of them, like 12, 15, 20 hummingbirds are all in this tree at once, because usually it's very rare and fleeting to see one at all. But every now and then we get a whole big glob of them. So that is really cool. There's a flock of wild green parrots that sometimes you hear them screeching and you might see some flying across. We have lots of really, really cool seabirds. If you go down to the seawall, which is just a few blocks from here, you can see all kinds of large seabirds, all kinds of interesting cranes and pelicans and things like that. I do have a nature book here that I would say is my favorite nature book. I'm going to pull it out because it's enormous. Hold on a second. Okay, so we have this Smithsonian natural history book, and this is actually my daughter's, but it kind of lives here at my house. She'll probably take it away one of these times. But it is a book we gave her one year for Christmas, and it has, oh my gosh, it just has everything, all the plant world and the animal world. And we like to just sometimes pull this out and sit down on the couch and randomly open the pages and see what we get and read about them. Oh, look, here's those green parrots. So it's pretty fun. All right, so one day we were looking at the pictures for fun, and we came upon, oh my gosh, it's gonna kill me, this page about the camel. And do you see the close-up of the camel toe? And we got to laughing, because that's the kind of family values we have around here. We laughed and laughed about the camel toe picture. So now every once in a while, I just randomly text her a blow up of that picture with, no words. We just laugh again. Mild Rumpus asks, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? Okay, well, I could go down some profound avenues, but instead I'm going to share a very practical piece of advice that Stephen and I were given, and it is rung true and come in handy many, many times. So my father-in-law, when he was young, I guess in college or something, at one point he had a side job as a mover, a furniture mover. And what he learned, and that he always says whenever anyone in the family is having a move, he always reminds us, remember, set the bed up first. So when you move into a house or an apartment, and once you've gotten all the junk unloaded, before you do anything else, set up your bed, and you will be so happy, because you're going to hit the wall and run out of gas sooner than you expected. And then if you walk in and you just have a pile of bed frame on the floor, you're going to be so sad. So set your bed up first as a gift to your later self. And that has been excellent advice. We always do that, and we laugh and we say, remember, set up the bed. But it is so true. And, if you want to get profound about it, there's a message about self-care in there, about thinking ahead and doing yourself favors that you will be happy about later on. Brian from Bookish asks, what is your favorite Texas-related book other than Lonesome Dove? Okay, well, first, a confession, I have not read Lonesome Dove. I have seen the show, the limited series, a couple of times, loved it, never read the book. So I don't know if that revokes my Texas card, but I will instead focus on the rest of the question and talk about Attica Locke, who is another Texas author that I've enjoyed, and she has not written enough books. So Attica Locke is a mystery writer, and I think she also writes for TV with her sister. And that might be distracting her from getting back to the series that she needs to add another installment of. And that is I've decided it's a series because I want a third book, but it's Bluebird and Heaven My Home. These are both mysteries set in Texas. Main character is a Black Texas Ranger from Houston. I don't remember his name right now. I can look it up real quick and stick it on the screen when I edit. And he has to go into some rather sketchy small towns out in rural Texas to solve crimes in these books. And So the books, they have a good, dark, gritty, sometimes violent, kind of surprising mystery stories. They also have a lot about race in Texas and uh, city versus rural settings. You know, as always, there is complications. The detective, well, the ranger has professional and personal issues bubbling in the background. But those are really solid mystery books, and I hope she has another one coming out. She left it off on the second one, like a third one is coming. Amelia from Amelia Reads asks, what countries have you already visited and which one was your favorite? All right, this is another a tragic tale too. Is the only place I have gone besides in my mind outside of the US is Belize. We went on a wonderful vacation to Belize, but I have wanted to go to the UK since I could read. As soon as I could read a kid's chapter book, I was an Anglophile, and I was asking for tea sets and scones and reading British novels, children's ones, you know, from a very early age. So I have wanted to go my whole life, and I hope that we will soon put together a trip there. We're kind of finally getting into a position where that is an option. So the UK definitely, Europe in general. I want to go to France, Italy. I want to go a lot of places. I'd love to go to the Netherlands. I'd love to go to Japan. I mean, the list is long. So hopefully we can put together a master plan to make some of those trips happen soon. Caitlin from Bandy's Books has a couple of questions. What is a book that fundamentally changed the way you think? Ooh, that's, okay. To change the way I think. I think at different times in my life, there were books that opened up my mind to various different possibilities. When I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, I stumbled into this book at the school library, The White Mountains by John Christopher. And this was the first time I read a dystopian novel, which is a genre that, if you watch my channel, you know I love dystopian fiction. But as a kid, reading a book that is set in a time when it's an agrarian community, that appears when you first start reading the book that you are in the past, but then these tripods come along that lift you up when you're 13, and they put this mesh cap on your head that can control your behavior and thinking. And that just my mind just blew up. And it's a trilogy. I have the 3 books. I love these books, and I reread them periodically. But just that concept of the future and dystopia and authoritative control, that was the first time I thought about those concepts. And I think that it's not just about reading and fiction, but it's also kind of an underlay when you think about society and history and politics. I mean, I think all of that kind of intertwines. So that was the first time those thoughts crept into my little mind. And then I went on and read things like 1984, and then more other, recent dystopian fiction. So that was kind of a turning moment. And another one, when I was more in the college age, was reading Beloved by Toni Morrison. And this was a point where my mind was ready to start searching for more authentic voices and more diversity in my reading experiences. I was coming off of a background of reading the stalwart classics that, let's face it, were mostly written by white men. And I love some of those books, and I still do. But I needed a broader experience. I needed to read about different kinds of people, different viewpoints of history and experience and emotion. This was one that really shook me, and I think everyone who read it was shook. And if you read it again, you get shook some more. But this one, I remember actively thinking, I need to read books that make me feel more deeply. This was a foundational thing. All right, Caitlin also asks, if you could read only one genre for the rest of your life, what would it be? Oh no. Okay, well, I guess if we could call classics a genre, I know it isn't really because it's every kind of book, but if I can cheat and say classics, then that's gonna that's gonna draw in a lot. So that's probably my official answer. And then she did ask about travel, but I think I kind of answered that in the other question about the places where I would want to travel to. My number one, if I could just go on one trip, I would do like a big, kind of expansive UK trip with London, England, and Scotland, and Ireland, and let's throw Wales in there too. Let's just go all over. Yeah, I think that's what I would do if I could just do one fabulous trip. Sonia from an enthusiastic reader asks, what kind of games do you like to play? Mind games. No, actually, I like board games. I'm not a gamer. I don't play video games, but I do like board games. My favorite board games are Scattergories and Categories. I'll play a lot of different kinds of board games. I don't have very many anymore. We went on this I kind of did a crazy 2020. When everyone lost their mind by summer and was purging and cleaning out the house, and I sold most of our board games on Facebook Marketplace, and I can think I went overboard because now I've had like nostalgic feelings and wanted some of them back. I don't know why, because I didn't really ever like Candyland to begin with. I don't need to play Candyland. Um, but even stuff like Sorry, but I like Pictionary. I used to love Trivial Pursuit. Oh, and I like Uno. Like the three of us play Uno, but infamously, I think I have won Uno twice in 57 years. So I don't know why I still like it, but I do like a board game. It's kind of hard with a family of three unless you're playing with some other friends or family. And the thing I don't like in board games is I don't like time pressure. It makes me nervous. So any game that has an hourglass or a timer, I just don't use it. And so sometimes our games can drag because there's no time limit for how long you sit around trying to think and decide, but that's the way I play. Reed Becca asks, what is your favorite snack? Okay, salty is Cheez-Its, and I just have a lifelong love of Cheez-Its, even though I guess they're not good for you, but I get the kind with the separate little bags to kind of keep me on the straight and narrow, because the box, I might just keep dipping into it. But I grew up there was always a box of Cheez-Its, and true story, one time my brother got a box of Cheez-Its. Hey, they're not all the same. Some boxes, when you get the box, some of them, even the bags, some of them are really good. Like there's just a perfect amount of cheesiness and sharpness and the crunchiness and the amount of salt. And sometimes you get a dud where they're really bland and they taste like cheese nips or goldfish or something. But one time my brother got the best perfect box of Cheez-Its, and it was so good that he went back to the store and he looked for other boxes with the same lot number to get a stockpile of good Cheez-Its. Yes. I went through January, I ate no Cheez-Its because I did Veganuary, and they're not vegan. It's like a little loophole. But now I'm kind of back on them now, but I try to only eat them like once or twice a week. I try to keep it from overwhelming my life. And sweet ones, I like cookies. I like chocolate, anything chocolate, dark chocolate, cookies, candies. I got a thing going right now about banana high chews. So yeah, those are some of my snacks. I love snacks. Priscilla from the Evening Reader asked, if you could start a YouTube channel that wasn't a booktube channel, what would it be? Probably vegan taste tests. I would, okay, we got 3 kinds of cheese and we're gonna test them out. I like mystery boxes, but I don't really want a bunch of junk that I end up not wanting to keep. I don't know. I think we'll go with the taste tests. What is a book you read but wish you hadn't? Okay, here it comes. Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Couldn't stand that book. I had a friend who wanted us to read it for book club because it was her favorite book, and I really, really, really hated Pillars of the Earth. And every time I see it in a thrift store, it kind of makes me smile because somebody else also didn't like Pillars of the Earth, because I know a lot of people love it. If you loved it, more power to you. I cannot stand that book. What is your favorite TV show of all time? The Wire. Yes, we rewatched it last year and it was still so good. That one just instantly pops into my head. I have a number of favorites, but my number one favorite is The Wire. If you haven't seen it, it's still good. Certain little bits and pieces are dated, but it's still excellent. All right, North of the Equator asked something that I've kind of covered, which is a memorable trip that you've made in the past, and where would you like to go in the future? So I did talk about where I want to go. Memorable trip I made in the past. The trip to Belize was wonderful. That was a family trip several years ago. Just a beautiful country I'd like to go back to. And we've had a lot of good American trips. We've been to San Francisco several times. I love Los Angeles. I haven't been to New York in years. I'd like to go back there. And then we traveled to a lot of other cities that I like to different extents. When my daughter was playing volleyball, she played club and we traveled all around. I do love Chicago too. I do want to get out and do some more trips. Now that we're just kind of empty retired nesters. That didn't come out right, but yes, we would like to travel some more. Hannah from Hello Bookworm asks, when did you start reading and what book made you fall in love with reading? And if you only had one book to read for a year, what would it be? Ooh, okay. I've talked about, what the book that made me fall in love with reading was probably the earliest book I remember reading was Green Eggs and Ham. And I remember being really excited to discover I could read it myself, but I don't know if was just memorizing it because the rhymes and everything. But I remember being really excited that I got the point and running and telling my mom, this book is about how you should try new things and not just decide you don't like it without trying it. So I was really excited that I had interpreted the theme of Green Eggs and Ham. And I don't know, I was probably in kindergarten. But, and then I remember it being very excited the first time that I selected and read a chapter book, which I've talked about before, B is for Betsy. And then I was just off and running as soon as I could read full-length children's books. If I only had one book to read for the rest of the year, for a year, okay. Oh, I'd probably grab that 2-part anthology again, because I could spend the whole year working my way through it, revisiting favorite short stories and poetry, and finding all the authors that I had skipped over and missed the first time around. So I think that would keep me occupied. I'd be kind of sad to spend a whole year not reading some of my other favorites, but I think it would actually be a cool project to just work through that gigantic 2-part American lit anthology from start to finish. So it begins with like Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, and it goes up. I mean, I guess it has to stop before the 80s or in the 80s, because that's when I bought them. So it's not going to have anything contemporary in it, but just revisiting all that foundational stuff would be worthwhile, and it would keep me busy. All right, a gratuitous question popped into the mix from Neil Hopwood. Who is the best brother ever? For real? Well, given my slim pickings, I guess I will go with Neil Hopwood. The one who went searching for the excellent Cheez-Its. You just open yourself up to me telling the story of the worst thing you ever did, which was the time that you folded up my research paper in the recliner. So I'm in high school and he's in elementary school, and I'm writing a paper, of course on the day before it's due, at the last minute, some sort of long essay with research in it. And this is the early 80s, so it's a handwritten paper with whiteout for class that's due the next day. And somewhere in the course of the evening, as I wander around the house writing and complaining, Neil decides to take a couple of pages out of my paper, basically the center of my paper, and stick it in the recliner chair and then close up the chair and hide my paper just to stir the turd and see me go crazy. And then, because he's younger, he went to bed and forgot. He just went to bed. And I searched everywhere for my pages, my missing pages that I knew I had written. And then I stayed up all night rewriting the whole paper. Yeah. And I am still waiting for the appropriate moment for revenge. We've mostly repaired this relationship and we have soldiered on, but there is still that. Constance Campbell asks, she had two questions. One was an accident because it wasn't really a 1K question, but I thought it was, and so I put it in here. And that was, have you ever read Proust, and would you reread it? And I have not. Somebody tell me if I should. Would that be a good fit for me, and should I consider it? You tell me. And the other question is, she says, I enjoy when a book reviewer gives an awful book a thorough thrashing. Is there a book you've read or DNF that you'd be willing to annihilate? Woo! Okay, I'm gonna go there with a couple of children's books. As a former school librarian, there's a couple of children's books that I despise, and they are greatly beloved. And I put up with years and years of having hear teachers or parents talk about how much they love this book, and children coming in and asking for the book. And I just had to be polite, but I'm going to do it now. The first one is The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. I can't stand this book. The themes are horrible, that you should have no boundaries, and you should just chop yourself up into little bits and give it all up for someone who's giving you nothing in return. It's like an homage to one-sided relationships, and I cannot stand this book. I love his funny poetry. When I was 9 years old, I got Where the Sidewalk Ends for Christmas, and I loved it so much. But this one is one of the all-time most toxic clunkers in children's literature, and I cannot stand this book. And the other one is Love You Forever. Who is this by? Is this Robert Munch? I gotta look it up. I blocked it out. This one too, this one that people always want to give out as baby gifts. Oh my gosh. Again, this one I don't like just because it's creepy, it's bizarre and weird, and the mother-son relationship is really questionable in this book. Oh dear. Why do people love this book? It's so strange. Why is she slithering into his room when he's an adult? Oh, ooh. Okay, there you go. 2 classics annihilated. Be gone. Last but definitely not least, Alan of Big Hard Books and Classics wants to know. I originally said the question could be mildly creepy or disturbing. Of course, I've been a little mildly creepy and disturbing in some of these answers. But he asks, the ocean, I love it, but there's monsters out there, plants and creatures we still know nothing about. What are your thoughts regarding the ocean? Okay, well, guess what? I love the ocean. I moved down here to the coast. We retired. We wanted to be closer to the ocean. We love the beach. We love the ocean. And I just love the sound of the ocean. I'm not a big fan of the sand, but I'll put up with the sand for the feel and the sound of the ocean and the waves, just the water views. And yeah, the creatures, that is a little creepy and disturbing. When I actually go into the water, and then sometimes I feel something bump into my leg that's bigger than a piece of seaweed, and I know like a fish or a turtle touched me. It's a little weird because I'm in their habitat. And I guess the ocean is my favorite biome. I'm just kind of fascinated with it. We love to go to the aquarium. But if you think about when you're out there in the water and there's somewhere in there with you are sharks and other things, it is a little creepy, but there's just something about the power and the scope of the ocean and the mysteries of it that I really love. Okay, I think I have reached the end of the questions. I hope I didn't miss any of them. And if you have additional questions or comments, you want to agree or disagree with the views expressed in this video, please do so down below in the comments. And I hope that you have a wonderful weekend, and I will be back soon. I have some more tags coming up. Some more April specific tags have rolled into the pile, and so I'll be doing one of those on Tuesday. And until then, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.